Okay, in this video I'm just going to go over some of the other things that they show you in the exercises this week. They're about formatting and some buttons on the ribbon that are useful. So first they just show you how to enter text, which is just clicking on a cell and typing. And you can use this there's a little eraser icon up here on the ribbon over here where it says clear that you can use to clear out the contents. But next thing they show you is about the tabs. Now when you first open Excel, at the bottom you'll see these three tabs that are named Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. And you can rename those, you can delete them, you can reorder them, you can add more. The way to rename them is you can right click on the name, Sheet 3, and just click rename, and then I could give it something like more meaningful like sales figures, and then hit enter. And then you can also do some other things, like if I right click I could actually add some colors to these tabs. There's a tab color sheet, so you can pick out a color like that. You see the color better when you're on a different tab. Okay, so you can see just clicking these tabs you can change all the pages. Okay, the next thing they show you is inserting and deleting rows and columns. So let's say I wanted to delete this entire row that says starts with solid oak. You have to select the row by putting your cursor on the numbers of the row, like here, and clicking where the 8 is. Okay, if I just click in the middle, it's not going to work. If I just wanted to delete the contents, I could just select those cells and hit the delete key. But to get rid of the entire row, I would select the entire row by clicking where the 8 is. Same thing for a column. To delete a column, I would click up here where the letters are. That selects the entire column. Then I could just right click and they have something for clear the contents, but this actually deletes the column. Okay? So it's just gone. Now there's still a column C, but that previous one is gone. I'm going to undo that. And the same thing for rows. Now you can insert a row like by just choosing. It's going to insert it to the left. So if I wanted to insert one between D and E, I would select E, and then I would right click and go insert. And notice I'm going to get a new E. Okay, so now here's what there was the former E, and now there's a new E. It goes to the left. And when you do it for rows, I'll undo that. For rows, you get a row above. So if I want to put one after 7, I have to pick 8 and then insert, and there's going to be a new row above 8. So now there's a new empty 8. Here's the original 8 was moved down to 9. Okay, so I'll undo that. So it's very easy to insert and delete rows and columns. Now you can move contents around. And the way you can do that, let's say I wanted to move this title. I would select the title, and then you just put your cursor on the edge, and you'll see 4 arrows pointing in the 4 different directions. And then you can just drag it and drop it somewhere else. Okay? So yeah, you have to have your cursor right on the border after you select it. So I'll undo that. Now you can also resize columns, and notice how I can't see all of this words here. Percent, it's percent off, but I can't see it all because it's not wide enough. So one thing you can do is make this wider. One way to make it wider is to go up in where the letters are and get a double-headed arrow on the border there, and you can drag it bigger. Okay? Another way to do it is to make it resize to the perfect size. You can go on that border and double-click, and then it makes it just big enough for all the words to be seen. Another thing you can do is right-click up here and choose column width. And then you can put exact size. Right now this size is 6.78. If I wanted to make it like, let's say, size 10, I would just select that and type a 10. And then click OK, and it got wider. So in the lesson, I think they have you use that method. And the same thing for rows. You know, here you can choose the row height, and you can enter an exact number. Okay, or you can drag it, or all those same things work. The double click. Okay, the next thing is there's a thing called hide and unhide. Let's say I wanted to not see this column and this column. I can select them by clicking up here. Now if I hold the control key down, I can select two columns that aren't touching. If I wanted to do a whole section, I could just drag my mouse like this. But if I wanted to get ones that weren't touching, I have to hold the control key down. Now if you're up in the letters or the numbers for the rows and you right click, you can see a command called hide. Okay? When I do this, those two columns disappeared. Now this time you can see that they still exist because I've got A, B, D, the C is hiding, and the E is hiding, and then I have F, G, H, and so forth. So they didn't get deleted, they just got hidden. And to unhide them, I would pick the two columns bordering it, so B to D, and if I right click on the border and I go unhide, I get it back. So that's useful sometimes when you just want to temporarily hide some data, and see some other data. It doesn't delete it, just hides it. Okay, now they show you some things on the home ribbon. One that's very useful is merge and center button. Let's say merging cells means all the cells become one cell, and merge and center is very good for titles. So for instance, I put this title up here. The words are all in A1. There's really nothing in B1. See, it's just the words show over that space. But let's say I wanted to merge and center this title over all the columns from A to H. So I would click in A1, drag my mouse across to H1. Now you can see I have that whole section highlighted. Now up on the home ribbon, in this alignment group, there's a thing called merge and center button. Okay, see that? All right, so if I just click that, now everything's centered, and this is actually one entire cell that's been merged together. Okay. Now another useful button up here is the wrap text, which is just above the merge and center. If I want to be able to see these words better, remember we widen the columns, but another way to do it is to select those columns and click on wrap text. And now the words can be seen. I might want to make this one a little wider so it doesn't split up those words, but you can see it, and then if I make this narrower, it wraps it down into a second or third line or whatever is needed. So, okay, so the next button is some style buttons. Okay, see how these are in percentages. So if I have like a number like over here, let me just put it over here, 0.06, 0.025, and I wanted those to be in percentage style. There's a couple ways to do it. One, the quickest way is there's a little in the numbers section, there's a little percent sign which is called percent style, and if I click it, I get a percent style. Now I'm not seeing all the digits that I had. So if I want to increase the precision, I can use these buttons to increase or decrease the number of decimal places. So this increases decimal places, and I can see more of the decimal places, or I could see less using these little buttons. Okay. Also, another way to change styles is this. At the top of the number group, there's a box with an arrow, and it shows you all the major styles, and you can just apply them really quickly from that. But I think in the lesson they want to teach you to use these little buttons. Another button is for the dollar sign, so it's called a counting style. So if I put some numbers here that I want to be money, I'll just put some strange numbers here. And I wanted this to be look like money, I would click this little dollar sign, which is called a counting number format. And now it got rid of those, just put two decimal places and put a dollar sign. Now actually up here there's actually two kinds of things for money. There's currency style and accounting style, and they're slightly different. But similar. They both have dollar signs, but just formatted differently. Okay, so there's also something called a comma style for really big numbers, so every 3 numbers you get a comma. Okay. The next thing is indents. You can indent text by, here, let me just make this bigger here. If, let's say I wanted to indent these 2 words, there's some buttons here in the alignment group, decrease indent and increased indent. So if I click that a couple times, I indent these without adding spaces. Okay, so they have that in the lesson. And then there's these alignment buttons that are also up here. You're used to these from Word, you know, right, center, and left. But in Excel, they also have vertical centering, because sometimes in a cell is very big and you want something to be at the top of it or at the bottom. Like if I made this row a lot wider. Now this, you can see that this is vertically aligned at the bottom, but here I can make it center or top. Okay, so those are useful in Excel. Okay, another button they talk about is the fill button. This does what you would think. It just adds a color to the background. And there's also, just like in Word, there's a borders button. So here, if I wanted to add a thick border around that box, now I just use this border. And again, they have the more borders where you can bring up a dialog and do fancier borders, just like in Word. Okay, they also cover some buttons on the page layout. So I'm going to the page layout ribbon. They cover margins. So this margins apply to when you're printing something, not when you're looking at it in Excel. So you would use this, just like in Word, you could bring up a dialog and change the margins. Also in this same box, you can do headers and footers, and they go through that. There's a button called Custom Header. Now, these headers and footers only show up when you printed out an Excel page. You won't see them except in Print Preview or actually in a paper copy. But in Excel, there's 3 sections to the header. So here in the left section and center section and right section, you can put different things. And they have buttons like you can insert a date. Let's say you wanted a date in the center. You know, now it just says ampersand date, but it's gonna, when you print it out, it's gonna put in the current date. And there's other ones like you can put in the file name, the sheet name, pictures, all kinds of different things. So they have some of those in the lesson, custom header, and you can make a custom footer as well. Let's see, some other things they have in the lesson is setting up about the print. Like let's say you had a big spreadsheet and you just wanted to print these 2 columns. Well, then there's a thing called print area that if you choose the area and then you click on set print area, then when you print this, only this will print and nothing else. Okay, and then you can always clear that out. And there's a couple other buttons they go things on this ribbon they go over for printing. You can choose to print the grid lines on your printout or not. And the same thing with headings. You can print them or not. When you print the headings, then they show up on every page if it's a multi-page layout printout. So those are the things they're going to cover. You can learn about those using the Show Me button and the Hint button. But I just thought it'd be good for me to go over those. So that's it.